Hi there. Welcome back to I Remember That podcast. Today's episode, we are going to talk about probably the best love of most of our lives, Pokemon, and we're going to do a survey of that industry, what Pokemon did to us as kids, a little bit of history behind their cards, their animals, the lore. That's a good word for it. And everything that we can remember, and the joy that the Pokemon company has brought to us as kids. As always, I'm your host, Kris, and you have Ian here with me. Say hello, Ian.
Hello, Ian.
All right. So we both know that we're both avid Pokemon fans. I was trying to remember earlier what the first Pokemon-like thing that I saw, and I can remember Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it was middle school, and some kid had another type of card, and he was like, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! It's so cool. And I was like, oh no, here we go again. Like the GTA San Andreas meme, like, here we go again. I gotta get back down in this rabbit hole. But but as for Pokemon, can you remember the first time that it kind of hit your radar?
I think it was the show first on, I caught the cartoon, but
Okay.
I remember my very first time trading a Pokemon card. Like, I don't remember if I had a set already, but I do remember I had a Charmander card, and I traded my friend Zach for his Sandshrew card, and it was like my first ever trade, and it just set off something in me, I guess, and like
Yeah, the dopamine.
yeah, like there's something about trading, like, and that's that. I don't know if that's like evolved into my life if from that, because like, dude, whether it's like Pokemon or fantasy football or whatever, like like even if it's not worth my while, like I love trading. Like, it's such a fun thing to do.
And to me, this was like the first experience of fear of missing out. Like the first generation wasn't always just the Pokemon. There's the next generation. Oh, you don't have the game. Oh, you have no clue about these new Pokemon. You're not gonna catch them all. Like really sealed that into our generation. Like, yeah, it's gone. You missed that special mythical Pokemon because you didn't download this pack.
Right.
So that was my first experience with that. I guess for Pokemon, yeah, it probably was the show. I remember going to summer babysitter, whatever you would call it, with a person who had 3 kids the same age as me, plus 2 neighborhood kids. So it was like a crew of kids, and I think we all got Game Boy Colors at the same time with the little link cable, and I got Pokemon Yellow with the Pikachu Special Edition Game Boy Color. I got one later than everyone else. I think this is like 3rd, 4th grade, so dinosaur times.
Right.
So they had. I remember everybody had different versions of Red and Blue. The next generation hadn't came out yet, but it was probably being talked about, and we would just trade on those, like the Game Boy games, over and over and over. And then the Books A Million in Oak Ridge, and I don't know if you remember this, but they would have battles and tournaments on Saturdays. My mom never took me to a single one. She would take me and get cards and stuff, but why would I kill a Saturday? I get it now, so no worries, Mom. But anyway, I had all my friends would go to that, and they would just give out packs for free and pump it us full of swag, and I can just remember that being that that summer was just Pokemon only, and I can't exactly think of the time. Like, I guess it was 1999 is my guess. That's my guess.
Yeah, I would say mine is probably the same era. Like, I also went to Books A Million. I think actually that's where my grandfather took me to get my like my first Pokemon cards at Books A Million. Like, I got a pack or like the booster starter set, whatever it was, and
yeah, like 10 cards. And as an adult buying these cards, I can buy like 4 or 5 packs if I went, but I can remember it being months between, you'd get one pack of cards and you were like, oh man, this is the best day of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, Books a Million is to this day so special to me because of that Pokemon stuff. And I didn't even go, but I just remember that being so cool. And we have one near my house, and I go in there all the, not all the time, but every so often, just to, I'll buy something just to be like, tip my hat to Books a Million.
Yeah, I used to, dude, Books a Million, like not necessarily to go off the rails away from Pokemon, but dude, Books a Million I would go in there when I was in high school to get Alternative Press magazine and just sit there and read about like reviews of new metal songs or pop punk bands going on tour and just all types of stuff for music. But yeah, Pokemon was a pretty big part of that Books a Million experience for me too. Just, I think I went down there and played a tournament once, maybe just to learn, but I didn't spend a ton of time down there. But so the card game, I didn't collect too much. I did a bit, but Yu-Gi-Oh was the one that I was super into collecting the cards and making a deck for myself. Pokemon, I cared about it a lot more in the game and TV version, but the cards I never got super into collecting.
Yeah, the Yu-Gi-Oh, to me, the card game was way more accessible than the Pokemon card game, because Pokemon, they had like gems you had to carry around, those like fish marbles, if you remember, and energies, and I was like, nah, you want me to collect or do you want me to take a class and learn this game? It didn't matter to me, the card game. But I love to collect the cards because I could look at them and I don't know, just something grabbed my little mind and said, this is really cool, just keep doing it. And and now I kick myself because I let my brother throw away all my cards to keep his baseball cards in all my bins, I had collected. And now I could have had a second house by now, because these cards are worth so much. But all good. So I assume everybody, or we both started in Gen 1, so did you have a favorite Gen 1 Pokemon? Or did you start in Gen 2?
Well, I didn't, I guess I got into Pokemon during Gen 1. My first game wasn't until Gen 3, but I did have a favorite Pokemon. Okay. My favorite Pokemon back in the day was Scyther. But I didn't.
And there's a lot of evolutions of Scyther now.
Yeah, they had in Gen 2 they came out with Scizor, which was like the steel version.
Yeah,
and then
red, right?
Yeah, he's red and metallic. But then in Gen 8 they released Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is like a game set.
It's so good.
Oh yeah, set in the past, and they came out with a rock evolution of him called Cleavor. So.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I beat that game, but I was a huge fan of it. There's a what's it called? Legendary Pokemon, or one of them that's in the water, and he throws cyclones at you, and the switch controls, I couldn't figure it out, so I stopped. But that was a really good one, and I appreciated the Game Freak or Niantic or whoever makes Pokemon games don't really veer from the path too much.
Yeah.
But that was really, really different. So, and since you're a little kid, that's all you wanted was an open world Pokemon game.
Yeah.
And also, not to just breakneck speed, but apparently the first time Pokemon were 3D modeled was for Pokemon Stadium. And I kind of feel like we took the cartoon for granted, because we had seen them animated. And then, right as we had gained awareness with our brains, that's when Pokemon Stadium had came out. But for people who had been fans of Pokemon since the late 80s, that probably was a mind-blowing thing to see on a game, Pokemon Stadium 3D rendered.
Yeah. Pokemon. Yeah, and like I think we talked about it in the first episode of this, but it was one of those where like it was the main thing you wanted to do with it was get that game pack and load your red or blue into it and put your Pokemon into 3D rendering to give that extra experience of your Pokemon battling in that environment. But but they also, it was accessible in that other way of like the kids who didn't have the games, like myself. I didn't own any of the Gen 1 games. You could rent Pokemon, and they had like a pre-established move set and pre-based stats. And it's extremely difficult to play like that. I didn't realize at the time how hard it was to beat like
apparently you can't. Yeah, or maybe you can beat it, or somebody so when the game came out on Nintendo Switch, you can play it in the Classic Collection. Yeah. People were complaining that you can't add any. It's broken. Like you can only play with rental Pokemon, so there's only like a couple Pokemon you can beat it with or something. So that people are complaining about it. It's one of those things where you didn't look past the headline, Yeah. So I don't know exactly what they're complaining about, but yeah, I heard that they wanted you to get your own Pokemon. But yeah, I like that. Yeah, it didn't matter. Like you could play it either way.
And that's something about that the classic version that you can play on the Switch. To me, it was nostalgic, and I didn't care because I grew up playing with rental Pokemon, so I didn't care about that. Right. But and plus we had the mini games and everything too. But yeah, like I've been playing the Gym Leader Castle, and weirdly, I got much farther as a child than I am now. Like I think there's an element of like
brain development,
right? Like I think the strategies, because like my strategy in Pokemon is a lot more sound, a lot more evolved and developed, and so like now I try to do this and incorporate this typing and all this stuff. But then like when I was a kid, I didn't care as much about that. I was just like, oh, this Pokemon's cool or strong, and it worked. Yeah. Like it worked well because like I beat the Gym Leader Castle as a kid with rental Pokemon. Like it's not impossible, but it is very hard. Like I'll say like it took me a long time to do it, but even this current iteration, like I've probably gotten through 5 gym leaders and I've had to restart 20 times. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, but in a good way. So it's replayability.
Yeah.
A negative from Pokemon Stadium that I've noticed, because I love the game as a kid. I got the Rumble Pack with the little you could put the game in. It came with this little collection or whatever, and so I played the pants off of it. But as an adult, I've played it on the Classic Collection, and where the rose tinted glasses kind of fade is the speed of those matches. Now the announcer is awesome.
Love the announcer.
I don't know how they got him, dude. That is so ahead of its time, because the 64 is very lacking with, like, for example, they have Tony Hawk, but there's like a way limited soundtrack. Well, the speed at which those battles take place, man, we had so much free time because we didn't notice it. But now as I sit down and I'm like, I'm going to play for like 30 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, they take a while.
But another thing that I noticed, you were talking about the difference between playing as a kid and an adult. As a kid, I only did moves that did damage. I didn't care about taking away PP or cursing or poison or anything. I just worried about or status effects. I didn't care about any of that. And now as an adult, I understand that that's like makes everything so much easier. You can get ahead of people at higher levels if you understand that stuff. And it's just so funny enjoying something as a kid and an adult and seeing what, as you gain knowledge, what changes in your perspective in a kid's game.
Yeah. And I think like I'm kind of, mine has evolved a little bit where like I do understand status and conditions and stuff like that. But like I do still like I might send out like my first Pokemon and I'll set up some stuff and do some things to where it'll cause status conditions. But then like after that, once I get stuff set up, I go back to just like attack everything. Like I try and set mine up still to where the strategy is like, okay, I've got this Pokemon's a grass, fire type, whatever, and so I have a grass type move, a fire type move, so it's got same type attack bonus. But then like I've got just as many variations of attacking as I can to get as much coverage on the other Pokemon, and that's like my whole strategy is like type matchups. But like I don't man, some of these guys, I don't think I could do competitive because this competitive scene is just so.
Oh yeah.
Like all the training they do of their Pokemon in the game, you know, they all the hatching they do on their eggs to get certain values, and I'm just like, I don't want to do all that, but I like battling with casually, you know, with my wife or my daughter or whoever. But my wife's really good at battling, so you know.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, she's really gotten into it, but. It's one thing too, you know, it's like battling, you know, grow as a kid versus now. It's like a lot when you grow up, you don't know about stats very well, and you're just kind of like, okay, this is my favorite Pokemon, so I'm going to use it, or this is my starter, and it's going to be on my team the whole game, but like, even as a grown up, I still go with Pokemon I like. You know, I don't. It was like when I'm playing through the game. I don't like, oh my God, I have to use only legendaries or only the strongest, highest stat Pokemon. Like, it's helpful, but I still do try and use like my favorites if I can. Mm-hmm. But what was your favorite Pokemon? Did you say what your favorite was growing up?
You know, you always have a couple. My favorite just Pokemon, not based on anything, just looks, I guess. I like Diglett a lot.
Really?
The Dugtrio. But I know, isn't that silly? Like, this is most bland. I saw the episode before school one day, and it cracked me up where he's trying to catch a Diglett, and they're just laughing, and he brings the Pokeball back to him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, that's my favorite one. I don't know, and it's always been that. But for like, say, evolution. And he's not like the strongest, but I like Alakazam, Abracadabra, Alakazam.
Right.
Those, they're, you know, like I said, nobody's picking that Pokemon to be in their top 8 or whatever, top 10 the starters. MySpace episode callback. But I like those a lot. It would be harder to pick like the newest generation if I had a favorite of them. I don't know. That's the cool thing about not knowing these Pokemon is good is when you play the games, you're like genuinely excited when you see a new Pokemon. You're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what do you do or who you are.
Right. And it's cool too when you're playing the new game and you don't know, like, is this Pokemon gonna evolve and you know, like, when? Because what I'll do, like, when I'll play a new game, like when Scarlet and Violet came out a couple years ago, every time I caught a new Pokemon, I would Google it and like I would go to it's called Bulbapedia. It's Wikipedia for Pokemon, and I would just see because like the very top of their page, it'll say it evolves into this Pokemon at this level or this using this stone, and that's why I would look because it's like some of these things, it's almost having like a game guide. Like you wouldn't know to evolve it using a stone unless you looked it up.
Right.
So I would,
it gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
With each generation, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like the newest one
in a good way. It's not bad. It's just the evolution of.
Right. Well, yeah. No, there's some of them that are like in the newest generation because you can send your Pokemon out of the Pokeball where you know and like go and battle in front of you, like do quick battles, so you're not like it didn't get as much experience, but it's kind of a fun open world thing. But like a couple Pokemon can only evolve if you leave it outside of the ball for 1,000 steps. And it's like, how would you know to do that if you didn't look it up? You know? I mean, it feels like playing fucking like Ocarina of Time, like, you know, going into the water dungeon.
Skyrim,
yeah, it's like, how would you know to do this if you didn't look it up? It's crazy. But regardless, I mean, it is cool, different. I do like that they have different methods now. It's not everything just, level 20. But it is, it's funny you say that though, like what you're saying earlier about like, you know, you may pick Pokemon because you don't know what it evolves into, or you don't, you know, you just like it because of what it looks like. And with Diglett too, it's funny. My son's favorite Pokemon is Diglett too. He thinks Diglett's funny.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and there's I don't know.
It's hilarious.
Have you ever played Sun and Moon?
I believe so.
There was
was that on the 3DS?
Yeah.
Or was that on the Switch?
It was 3DS, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, and there's something I actually really want to go into after I bring this up, but it's they had a regional form of Diglett and Dugtrio that were ground steel type, and I think it was meant to imitate like lava or like molten whatever, but where they look like Dugtrio with hair, and it's hilarious, and my son loves that. Like, he saw the picture of it and he thinks it's hilarious. So he loves Diglett. And but yeah, one of the things I was going to bring up, like nostalgically, like whether it's for, you know, not just for us and our experiences, but Game Freak, they thrive like on pandering to our nostalgia. Like, that as a company, they don't like, yeah, they advance the Pokemon world, like the graphics improve, they give you the open world stuff, they give you new methods, but dude, like if there's no other company in the world, I think, that panders to nostalgia so hard, because like every game they're like new form this, whatever. And I took some notes, so you know, a little bit of research, because you know we try to throw a little bit of that into the episodes. You know, Gen 1 is a throwback, right? That's just, it's the first one. Everyone knows it. Everyone loves Gen 1. But in Gen 2, they added 18 evolutions or pre-evolutions to Gen 1 Pokemon, right? Like, it's just a few years later, and already they're like not just giving us new stuff. They're like, okay, we got to add on to the old stuff. They want to keep people, you know, they want to make sure, okay, oh, you like this one? Well, it's got a new evolution, right? So
yeah, they're not splitting their player base as much, and they're adding more lore on the you know, where can we fill in these gaps? Like Star Wars in a way now, like that's what they're kind of doing.
So, you know, Gen 2, they went and added a bunch of evolutions and stuff to keep the old fans want to come back. It's like, oh, I can evolve my favorite old Pokemon, or I can get new ones. You know, it's a little bit of both. Gen 3 didn't really do that. Gen 3 didn't pander too much to nostalgia. They just had one pre-evolution, and that's it. It was a pre-evolution to Wobbuffet, and that's it. They didn't touch it. The old Pokemon stayed the same. But then Gen 4, they went heavy, because then they went back. They added 29 evolutions and pre-evolutions, like a ton. They just they're like, okay, Electabuzz, Magmar, Rhydon, like all these old Pokemon, you get these badass evolutions with like cannons and like crazy shit. So that was a big one.
You're talking about the Mega. Is this Mega Evolutions the same thing?
No, that's coming up. That's
okay.
Gen 4 was Diamond and Pearl, and they just added a bunch of new evolutionary, basically like, okay, if you trade a Rhydon holding this item, or trade a Magmar holding this item, they'll evolve. And they did it to, like, again, 29 Pokemon they gave new evolutions to in some form. And then Gen 5 came around, that's Black and White, and they tried to like almost reset the system, right? Because in Black and White, the first set of them, you couldn't catch any old Pokemon during the game. Like, it was all, you could only catch new Pokemon. And in every older game,
I think that came out, I know I bought it in Oak Ridge at that GameStop, but I'm pretty sure that's the summer we were like living together and hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was 2009, 2010-ish. So yeah, it had to be.
Yeah.
And that was one where, like, in that game, they were like almost resetting the system, and a lot of the Pokemon were like almost copies or versions of older Pokemon, but you couldn't catch old ones.
Like lamps and gears and that's what I remember. It was like household items almost were just Pokemon. And I'm like, who's making these?
Yeah, there was definitely a handful of those.
And they're fine now. It's canon now, but like, at the time, I remember being like, "Are they done with ideas?"
Right? Yeah, and that's one of those conversations I've had with people where it's like, you know, the gears and the ice cream cone, all that stuff. But then it's funny too, because a lot of times, you know, people don't look back and think like literally there's like 3 different piles of goop in Generation 1. There's like they're like nothing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Or there's 2 Pokemon that are just balls. Like, they're just a ball.
Yeah, like it's like a Pokeball. Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things that I like Pokemon so much I can laugh at that, and it's not that big of a deal. Like, they could put out a piece of paper as a Pokemon, and I'm like, hey, I gotta catch it.
Yeah.
It's another one.
Yeah, that's what it's like. I like that lighthearted like approach to it. It's like, obviously you keep playing Pokemon, so it's not like you're like, oh, this is stupid, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Versus like so many people who are like, oh, Gen 1's the only good one, and it's like there was a Pokemon in Gen 1 that was a seal. It was based on a seal. It looked like a seal. It was about as strong as a seal, and its name was Seal. And it's like like, there's nothing special about it. And then it evolved into a Dugong, which is also like, they're just sometimes, you know, in Gen 1 there was just there were some basic ass boring Pokemon. There were some cool ones too, obviously, like Charizard and Blastoise were awesome, but like, people just see the bad ones in these newer generations and think, oh, it sucks. But like, dude, there's like, as you've played it, there's some really cool ones now too. Because then going forward, Gen 6, that's the one where Mega Evolution comes around, right? And that's where the nostalgia really, they kicked in with it, because they're like, okay, all your favorite old Pokemon, they're back with new awesome forms, and like 2 new Charizards. One's a dragon. Finally, he's a dragon now. 2 new Mewtwo forms. Like Blastoise has an extra giant cannon now. And they're just, and it was cool. Like, I loved it. I thought Mega Evolution was awesome.
Yeah, and it being in 3D with the 3DS, that was cool. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Because you smash the button in the middle of the DS screen to make them, grow really big.
Yeah.
And it was a cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Cool little animation.
And then in Gen 6 also, they introduced Fairy type, and that's when they kind of...
Oh, that's right.
They tried to revamp it a little bit, and that's when they brought in the, Eevee could now evolve again. So Eevee's got 8 evolutions now. And so that was Sylveon, which is the fairy type Eevee evolution. So, there's just nostalgia everywhere in the Gen 6 games. And then also in Gen 6, they rolled out the remakes for Ruby and Sapphire, which gave even more Mega Evolutions to old Pokemon, and you could re-experience Hoenn which is Ruby and Sapphire in 3D. So massive nostalgia pandering in that one. But then Gen 7 comes around, and they gave us regional forms, which are, like I mentioned earlier with Doug Trio, it's old Pokemon, but they're like, okay, but instead of just old Pokemon, it's the same Pokemon, but imagine it evolved it grew in this environment.
Has a hat on.
Yeah. It grew like...
Yeah, or has yellow eyes.
Right.
Yeah. Man, I when they did that, it makes so much sense. And I noticed that first in Pokemon Go. Soho region form, or I can't remember. It's been a while since I played it, like probably 6 months, but to realize, like, to see, like, you in shinies for that matter, that's a whole other wormhole. But to see, like, you're playing Pokemon Go and you see a million Doug Trios, and then you see one that's slightly tan, and you're like, what the heck? And then all of a sudden you see those little stars above them, and you're like, oh my gosh, you get so excited. Yeah. I love that they added that, because it, once you've caught them all, okay, I did it. I'm a master. I'm done. No. You haven't got any shinies or Johto region, Kanto.
Right.
They really knew what they were doing when they added that in. That slight variation. Yeah. Or like Hitmonchan will have a hat and an apron on, or for some reason,
right.
This is pretty funny.
Well, and then the latest generation, though, in Generation 9 in Scarlet and Violet, they added it's not even regional forms. So, like, regional forms, like I said, is like, okay, Exeggutor, for example. Exeggutor in Gen 1 was Grass Psychic and just kind of a fat palm tree, or coconut tree. But then in Gen 7, when they brought in regional forms, they brought a new version of where it was like tall and skinny, but it was dragon type. So
oh yeah,
and I think it's based on like maybe
Pokemon Go. I caught one and I was like, what in the world is the game messing up? Like, or I don't, like, did we go to Underworld Land in Pokemon or something? It was super weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I noticed that one the most. That was the first one that caught my eye. I was like, this is not what I remember.
Right. And they did a bunch of those. They've been doing those every generation now, luckily. Like, I really like those. But then in Gen 9, they added convergent forms, which are basically like Pokemon that look and are very similar. Like, let's say alligators and crocodiles, right? They're evolved on different continents. They're similar in so many ways, but they're not the same animal. Like, you look and there's but in Gen 9, they did that with some old Pokemon too, which they did Diglett again. And they have this one Pokemon called Wiglet, which is a water type, and it comes out of the ground, but on like sandy beaches and stuff. and it's long and white, but has like a Diglett nose. So, but it's like it looks almost like a ghost, kind of like a long ghost, and then it evolves into Wug Trio. So it's very similar.
I gotta check that out. I don't think I've seen any of those.
Yeah, Wiglet and Wug Trio, they're just convergent forms. So they're similar in a lot of ways, but they're not actually a connected evolutionary line. And they did the same thing with Tentacool and Tentacruel, and they made them, I think, grass ground, and they made them like running on land. So they're based on mushrooms now instead of jellyfish. So it's Toadscool and Toadscruel.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So,
I don't think I've seen any of that. But I like it. I like where they're going.
Yeah. So definitely check out. If you haven't played Scarlet and Violet, that's where those are introduced at, and it's really cool.
Oh, I haven't. I so many people dogged it for having bad graphics and it run bad that I never picked it up, and now the price hasn't dropped on it, so I'm like, I missed it, I haven't tried it. But yeah, I guess I should go back, because I do love the games. I have been playing, you can play it on your phone and browser, but it's Poke1, Poke1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all of the regions, all of the maps, all the generations, all smushed together. And each game is like, how you go to a different town?
Yeah.
Well, that each game is like that. You beat one game, you keep your Pokemon, go to the next level, and you have an overall level yourself that levels up, and you get special. There's like 20 to 30 more types of Pokeballs, and then there's battles, and you can PvP battle, and it's the graphics of Pokemon, like 3DS or whatever, but just all of it mushed together. It's really fun. I'm actually stuck at the Elite Four. I don't know what to do. I can't buy any more potions. I don't have any money, and my Pokemon are like stuck at a certain or no, they're not the types. You know how you battle the Elite Four? You have to keep the same health the whole way through. Well, I've got the wrong Pokemon. I'm not gonna make it. I don't know what to do. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, that's one of the things about the newer games that I feel like, I mentioned earlier, like, Game Freak is always trying to evolve the game in terms of like new forms, but also making it nostalgic. But they've not really tried to evolve the gameplay in such a way, because like the battling, they've made it like a billion times easier.
Yes, they have done that.
Yeah, like, because like what you were saying with the Elite Four, there's, if you wanted to switch out a Pokemon in your party in any of the older games, you had to go to the Pokemon Center, you had to heal them up, you had to do all this stuff. But in Scarlet and Violet, you could be just standing in the middle of the field and just be like, hey, I'm switching this guy out. So like if you just lost a Pokemon in battle and you just finished a battle, you could just switch it out for a healthy Pokemon in your box just in the middle of anywhere. So it just makes it insanely easy, like versus, you have 5 Pokemon faint and you're down to one last guy and you got to make it back to the Pokemon Center. That doesn't happen anymore, because you can just switch them out whenever you want. And it takes a lot. I think it takes a lot away from the game, like the challenge and the same thing. Like they used to have experience share, where it's like it used to be when you were in the first.
When you pick one other Pokemon, you had to have them hold it.
Yeah. And now, like I think it's been since Gen 5 or 6, experience share is just a key item. Now every single Pokemon gets experience, no matter what. If you battle, they all get experience, and like I mean, there can be elements of it where you could say, hey, Game Freak, I want the option to turn it off so it keeps the challenge, but it's like,
oh yeah,
I mean, I don't know,
like a hardcore mode.
Yeah, because like the older games,
as an adult, I was
gonna say the older games had a lot more of a challenge to them, where you would go and rematch gym leaders like multiple times because you get your ass kicked because you didn't have leveled up Pokemon. But now it's like they're all leveled up all the time.
Yeah, to say the least. I remember You know, when you're like, oh sweet, I got a Pikachu, I'm unstoppable, and then Brock is just like, hey little buddy, you're gonna be here for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And with that Onyx, oh my gosh, yeah, that crushed me. But yeah, I like I said, as an adult, I like the XP share with everybody. It saves time. But I appreciate that as a kid, I didn't have those training wheels, and I had to take 12 hours a day to get my team ready, you know? So I think they did that to make the game last longer. But now that they don't have to have that necessarily because everybody loves Pokemon, they're like, let's just, you know, make it a little easier on them because they're going to replay it anyway. So we don't have to put these artificial slowdowns on XP, you know, to keep them playing longer.
Right.
I don't know. That's just my conspiracy take on why they do that.
Yeah, no, I mean,
because it's all just numbers, you know. At the end of the day, I played Diablo, if you're familiar with that game, and after about 2 or 3 hours of sitting there, I'm like, all I'm doing is making numbers bigger and bigger and doing the same thing and making the numbers bigger.
Yeah.
And I love it. I don't know why. And I think at the core of Pokemon, it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I like about Pokemon is kind of like we were talking about Yu-Gi-Oh versus Pokemon cards earlier. One thing about Pokemon in terms of numbers that I think really adds to the collection, like the collect them all aspect, is the numbers rising, like the number of Pokemon, but it's like each Pokemon has a number, you know, it's like this Pokemon is number 534. So it's like you've got like a list and there's like a checkbox of like, okay, I can get like because like I think of Yu-Gi-Oh and I'm like, I have no idea how many Yu-Gi-Oh monsters there are. Like, I don't know the total number. I don't know.
Yeah, do they number? I think they number them, but I'm not sure. I never thought of
it. Yeah, but you never think of that like even if Dark Magician had, you know, it was number 57, like no one ever talked about that. It was just like you had a Dark Magician, which was cool. But like in Pokemon, I feel like it's widely known. I feel like that Pikachu is number 25. Like, you know, for general Pokemon fans, like Pikachu's 25 and Mewtwo's like 150. You know, there's like those certain numbers and now there's over 1,000 Pokemon, but still like there's you know, it's much more fun to collect when you've got like a blank space in your Pokedex because you're like, oh, which one am I missing? You know, you've got numbers 69 and 70 and 72. Right. So like, oh, what's 71? Like, I don't know.
And if you've seen it in the game, it's grayed out instead of, you know, question marks.
Right.
Ooh, that's such a good layer. That I mean, I think about that a lot, or when I would play the games, I would think about that, but that does make it more special, that little added, oh, you've seen it, but you haven't caught it yet. You don't know what it is, but you have the outline, you know.
One of the, dude.
Makes me think of Pokemon Pinball.
Yeah.
One of my top 5 games.
So some of the side games, the Pokemon side games, I didn't really play many of them, but Pokemon Pinball, Pokemon Puzzle League, a couple of those were pretty fun.
Pokemon photo, what is it? Snap. Say anytime somebody, like I'll be shooting at the Ryman or Bridgestone or somewhere big and they'll be like, oh cool, what got you into this? Pokemon Snap. We'll be shooting like sticks or somebody. I'll just have the stupidest answer for you.
I love that.
But
well, have you played the new Pokemon Snap?
Yeah, I think it's great. I didn't play the original one as much as I've played the new one. I like it. I haven't found in very many secrets. I don't think I've even beaten it. But whenever it came out, I played it a good amount.
Yeah, I played it. My wife played it a lot more than I did. Well, I don't know if she played a lot more, but she beat it. But I was just struggling getting to the next like area because, like, you know, and I do like this aspect because the original Pokemon Snap, it's exactly the same each time. Like if you go to the beach area, it looks exactly the same. You just have to remember the timing of, or like where to throw the apple or the ball to get it to turn around.
Yeah.
And that's cool. You know, I'm not, you know, anti the way that game was played because it's iconic, but then there's the new Pokemon Snap and it is the same. Like if you go to the jungle area the first time, then it is going to be the same every time. But then there's like, okay, you can advance to jungle area at night. And then it's like totally different Pokemon, totally, you know. And
Right.
but the thing,
And it makes sense.
yeah, but the thing you have to do that I find kind of annoying, honestly, kind of very grindy, is like having to go back and like in order to get to the next one, you have to reach a certain number of like points and all this stuff. And like I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure out how to get to the next area.
I think that's what stopped me. Yeah. Like you after a while you get 3 stars on a photo, you're like, okay, there's like I'm not gonna make this any better. I don't know what you want to do.
Right.
And then that's where those secrets come in, and I didn't want to look it up, so I couldn't. I got stuck, and yeah, it is a lot more grindy. And then you have to do it over and over and over to, yeah, like I said, to get the 3 stars.
Yeah.
And you're 5 points away. You got to do it again.
Right.
It's like,
and it got old. I'm kind of like that with a lot of games where like there's a couple even main Pokemon games. Like I don't think I ever finished Legends Arceus like you talked about. I don't think I finished Sun and Moon.
Yeah.
There's just some of those games that like there's certain like grindiness or certain aspects to them where I just get like bored of it. It's like it's not like they're bad features, but I'm like, I don't care about this enough to keep doing it.
Right. And then that's how I feel when I start a new game over like on my phone. I start out so strong. I'm like, yes, I love Pokemon. And then I get to about the 3rd or 4th gym, and then it's like, oh, this is a grind.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I got what I needed out of it.
Probably the best game for me, the best game they ever did was Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Those are the Ruby and Sapphire remakes for 3DS. And it was great because they involved new megas, but the thing that was so great about that game was like between X and Y, which were the first Gen 6 games, and Ruby and Sapphire, and then some post-game stuff, you could collect every single Pokemon in existence up to that point. So like you could have, I think it's like 800-ish Pokemon. So you could have every single Pokemon on your game, 800 something Pokemon. And that was just the best. Like having a full, like complete, like not just filling the Pokedex for that game, but filling the entire 800 Pokemon dex, you know? And that was great.
And now, don't they have an app called like Pokemon Home that keeps up with? Okay, I haven't ever messed with it, but I bet that's pretty cool for somebody that keeps track of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's some elements that like Katie's tried to do some stuff like that, and like that's when Katie knows that she's done with the playthrough. Like she'll beat the game and then go back through and she'll complete the Pokedex for the game, and then she'll start the game over at some point and then finish the Pokedex. Like that's one of her like completionist type of things. And and I like to do that every now and again, but it can be tough, especially because like with so many things you have to trade. You know, someone's got the other version of the game, or there's
man. And I never have anybody that plays at the same time. Like that's what gets me on Pokemon Go. Luckily, they added where you can trade people far away now. But like for a while, I was just like, I'm not walking up to some little kid to get him on champ,
right?
You know?
And well, that's a good thing to talk about. Actually, is probably Pokemon Go, like the full experience of that, because it was such a revolutionary thing because it's still people still play the hell out of it. But like there was that summer of like, was it 2017 where like everyone just went nuts with it. Like it was the coolest new game, and everyone went everywhere just catching Pokemon, and like, you know, everyone was in the you know, downtown Manhattan together in the one area to catch a Dragonite, and they were in the park together. Like people were all over the place with that game, and it was great.
Yeah.
It was fun.
When it came out, I was at the beach, and for some reason, the condo or wherever we were staying was a Pokestop, and I got real spoiled because I was like, this is great. And then I got home, and there's no Pokestops anywhere.
Right.
But yeah, I remember a lot of people played, but when we got back home, that's when I was at MTSU still, and I could walk to the campus like right across the street. And I can remember there's a library in the middle of campus in this huge courtyard, and it almost looked like a concert. There were so many people out there playing Pokemon Go, and there's like a downtown square area. It's kind of like Market Square, but literally a square of buildings, and that was like swarmed with people, and the cops were driving around playing the Pokemon theme song. Like It was randomly, so it brought the community together so hard, like so well.
Yeah. And it was fun for me. I don't know if it's like me being a dickhead, like old Pokemon player, where it's like I don't like having to catch a bunch of one Pokemon to evolve it. Like I just don't think that's very fun personally.
Oh yeah, the candies and stuff. And in the beginning, it was brutal.
Yeah.
Now it's not so bad. It's a full-fledged game now, like battling, trading.
Right.
It's more of what should have been in the beginning, but that's how everything is.
And that's why I quit playing it, honestly. And that it sucks. Like I just can't get back into it. I haven't tried too hard, but like I was super into it at first with everybody else, and to a degree, I don't think I was like to the same level as some people, but I would catch like a lot of the base forms, but I was not about to go catch, 30 Slowpokes to get a Slowking. Like I'm not about that shit. But the thing is, I probably would have enjoyed the game and kept going had all the generations been available at first. And I know that that's a really tough ask for them to do all 1,000 Pokemon and do all the forms and do that full-fledged game from the beginning. Like you said, it takes a while to polish and get it to where it's workable. But like to me, I get bored of games that are just Gen 1. Like, I know that they're nostalgia-based and people love them, but, like, my favorite Pokemon of all time is a Gen 6 Pokemon. So, like, the fact that I couldn't catch my favorite Pokemon for years after the game came out, I'm like, I just don't care enough,
True, and I wonder what they do to deal with that, because, yeah, you're right. I mean, they're not going to just... If they want this thing to run for 20-plus years, they can't put it all out on the same weekend. But yeah, that's got to be tough, because yeah, how many generations of kids don't even know about Gen 1 other than Pikachu and Charizard and those Mewtwo, whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. I played it real hot and heavy at the beginning, deleted it for years, picked it up probably 3 years ago. And then this past year, I picked it up again, played it an insane amount, and then dropped it again. I was just like, I'm good.
Yeah.
But the difference between then and now is insane. Like it's, they have the shinies and the different types of, like you were saying, the region characters and colors, and there's battling. You can battle remotely now, and there's mega evolutions you can catch, and tons of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And I actually looked up some facts, and specifically Pokemon Go generated last year 566 million in-app purchases.
Jesus.
But Pokemon Go's most profitable year was 2020, which makes sense because people could go outside.
Right.
Another fact is, well, in general, the Pokemon Company itself generated $1.5 billion between March 22 and February 23, which was a 15% increase from that last year. The most things that they sell is the games, which I thought it would be the cards, but that's different.
Yeah, the games they still like the units they sell millions and millions. Like every new game they sell like crazy. Like it doesn't matter how many forums you see online, how many Facebook posts complain about it's too easy, the graphics suck, dude. They're still massive games.
Yeah, that's how I felt about, well, yeah, when everybody was trashing it, I was like, it's still going to be the number one best-selling game. and, or whatever, award they usually get, they're going to get again. I felt that way with the Harry Potter game, too. It was like, even if J.K. Rowling is a devil, people still like Harry Potter. They don't, in Call of Duty, it's the same thing, like, oh, this new one's going to be the worst one ever. And it's like, it doesn't matter. People people just enjoy it in general. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad.
Yeah. Well, like I definitely have, like we talked about it in the sports episode, sort of like, people have their lines about, what they support and everything. And like, I'm with you, and I don't want to make this we could have a whole Harry Potter episode, honestly, which would be great. But, and we can shit on J.K. Rowling all we want, because I absolutely will. But
True.
But like, it's crazy. Like, as big as into Harry Potter as I've been my whole life, like my biggest tattoo is a Harry Potter tattoo. Like, it was my thing, for just like a lot of other people. And it was like one of my lifelong favorite franchises. And then all this J.K. Rowling stuff happened, and the last few years. And dude, like that Hogwarts Legends, what's it? Hogwarts, whatever it's called, Legacy, yeah, Legacy. Gabby got it for my sister, got it for me for my birthday 2 years ago, I think, last year. And I played it for like 5 minutes, and I was thinking about going back to it, but then there was something about me and my wife were talking about watching the movies at some point, and I was like, you know what, I want to give that up. Like, I'm not gonna, I don't like, obviously the game's already purchased, so I'm not gonna be one of those guys. But like, so I never play, but I didn't want to play because like, I wanted to tamper my fandom, because like, I don't want to just keep getting that itch to watch, because I don't plan on ever watching the movies again, only because they're on Max. And so now every time I watch it, every stream goes to J.K. Rowling's pocket, and I don't want her to get any more. I don't want her to get any more money from me, So like, right. I'm trying.
You sound exactly like my wife. She says the exact, like literally word for word, all the things you said. But her remedy is that we bought them all on DVD years ago, and we still have them. So when it starts to feel like fall outside, I don't think I watch DVDs at all, but those DVDs we have.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I think some, the standards you look past are the standards you set. So if you don't do anything, you're okay with what she spews out of her mouth.
Right.
It's hard for me because like I'm a fan of wrestling, so I got to separate the worker and the art all the time. But that doesn't mean that you like I said, you got to do something if that bothered you, or if the artist is trashing someone you care about. You got to do something,
right? Or
it really doesn't bother you. So yeah, I feel you there. Tying it back to Pokemon, did the movie? Did you see it in theaters? The Pokemon, what was it, 2000?
The first movie it came out in 99, but it did come out in theaters, but I don't think I saw it in theaters, but I do remember those, you remember those, like the 4 gold, like cards that came from like Burger King that were
Burger King? Yes.
Yeah, they were tied. It was like, Electabuzz, Pikachu, Mewtwo, and
they had us in a chokehold with those things, dude. Oh man,
it was wild.
I didn't even think to talk about that. But so with the movie, if you went to the movie, you got a Mewtwo card, and man, I bet that thing worth so much now. Anyway, what's funny, I was so excited. I was like, Pokemon movie? Are you kidding me? Like, oh my goodness. And I was so invested in it. And I remember looking over and my dad was asleep. And I just was like, what? Like, how could you sleep during this? And then as an adult, I'm like, dude, I get it.
Dude.
But that movie was so good. And it was so emotional. And like Mewtwo was like playing God pretty much, the way he was like slinging these monologues.
Yeah.
And it was just like such a cool experience. What I imagine it was like to go see Star Wars, as a kid in the 70s. Like it was like, oh man, I'm here with all these people that love this as much as I do, like really young. I just always remember that being fun. I don't think I saw any of the other movies in theaters.
I didn't see any of them in theaters. I don't think I've seen any of them in theaters, but I've seen the first 4 movies for sure. I haven't, the anime and everything since I've been a kid, I've been kind of off and on about it, been kind of whatever, not like it's been the games mostly for me, but I do remember actually, I watched the Pokemon the movie 2000 with Lugia. That was like a huge one for me growing up, but I saw this.
So there was so it was different. There's another one. Okay. I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah. So the Pokemon the movie 2000 was the second one. Pokemon the movie 3 was, it was also a Gen 2 movie with Unknown and Entei as like the main. They're not necessarily bad guys in the movie, but they're the main sort of antagonists, I guess. And then But the fourth movie, Pokemon the movie Forever, it was really funny because I saw a reel about this recently, and like this is like 100% like clickbait bullshit, but there was a character in the movie. It was like this young guy named Sam, right? And he and Ash became friends in the movie. And you're just like, okay, and you don't know where Sam's from. And then at the end of the movie, you find out because Celebi, like the main sort of catalyst of the movie, is a time traveling Pokemon, and you're like, oh, Sam has to go back to his time. Like he's not from this time, he's from the past. And then I saw a reel recently that was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't catch this when watching the movie. And then immediately after Sam goes back to his time, you see Ash talk to Professor Oak, and Professor Oak, his first name is Samuel. And he even makes a comment, and he goes, I remember it like it was yesterday or something like that. And it's like, if you've seen the movie, like it's one thing to not know that, like if you hadn't watched the movie, but like if you watched the movie, they smacked you in the face with the fact that the kid was young Professor Oak. Like that was the point.
Right.
But it was cool. It was a cool like feature of the movie to have Ash be friends with young Oak.
Yeah, and as a kid, it probably blew little kids' minds. I don't think I ever saw those two.
Yeah. Those first four were solid. I liked them, and then I quit caring about them. But my kids, we'll watch some of the anime here and there, and it's the same as it's always been, just just silly. Ash is still well, and actually, did you know that last year, I think might have been earlier this year, that Ash is no longer the main character of Pokemon?
I saw that. I refuse to believe it, so it's not real. Yeah. It's funny because when I was a little kid, I went to this summer camp, and this comic book guy, like the character from The Simpsons, like he had that personality. Yeah. He was a camp counselor, and he was like, man, I got these bootleg anime from, overseas where Ash is in his 40s and he's loving it, and Pikachu dies, and I, as a little kid, you're like, what are you talking about? And I scoured the internet, dude. None of that stuff was real. It threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
But one last thought I wanted to leave the podcast with is, when was the last time you bought a pack of cards as an adult?
Oh God. Well, okay. I was gonna say like, not since I was a kid, but like actually, I bought my kids a pack of cards probably a couple years ago.
Oh, okay, that counts.
Yeah, I think I bought my daughter because my mother-in-law is a teacher at a middle school, and some kid from her last class or something or they found on the playground is like this tin of like 100+ cards, and they didn't know where it went, and nobody would claim it or something like that. So she just gave it to Lucy. So Lucy had this big set of cards all of a sudden a couple of years ago, and I was like, okay, those, and some of them were pretty old, and so I ended up buying a new pack or two just to like add, because we would, not the actual game, we were basically playing War. Like we would like each get a stack and be like, okay, we lay a card down at the same time. If my Pokemon is 40 HP and yours is 50, then the 50 one wins, and we just kind of play like that.
I love that. It works perfectly.
Yeah,
too.
It was great.
Yeah, you should look up the value of those cards. That's what got me into it. Over the pandemic, I would see on TikTok people would open cards and would watch, and I was like, I can do this. I love opening cards. So I'd buy 30 packs or 20 packs, and then I'd just open them on TikTok live, and people would watch them, and then I'd get hits. Like I got a VMAX Charizard, VMAX is the new thing on cards, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like a rarity thing, and like it's like Super Saiyan Pokemon, right. I guess. It might be a sin to say that. Anyway, so me and my buddy would accrue these cards, and then we'd sell them. And I think the most I made on a card was like $175. And like people do that as the job now. And so like that got me into buying cards. It's funny there for a while, and it's still super competitive. But you could go to Walmart and they'd be putting out a new type of pack, and it wouldn't be little kids; it'd be like grown adults, like Black Friday almost, like one at a time, and it would be weird energy, like, oh wow, I don't want to get beat up here,
Right.
but like these people take it so serious. It may still be lucrative, but the more people get involved, the more bloated it gets. But yeah, the value of those cards has just been insane. So yeah, I like to. Sometimes I'll go get a pack if I'm stressed out or not or whatever. You just got an extra couple bucks at the store, and it's just like it's fun to see what my two hollows are gonna be and the smell of it and like the cards and you never know. You could get one and it's like the rarest card of all, and you're set now. So it's not just like throwing money into the wind, I guess, because it's little pockets of lore. You get to see what new cards are coming out.
Right.
I don't know. The thrill has not died for me, I guess.
Well, I was going to say, because I know we're running short on time, but there was, it just occurred to me, like, we've talked about our favorite Pokemon multiple times, but I never actually even told you what mine were. Because, like...
Oh, I'm sorry, I should have asked.
Well, you did. Like, you asked my favorite Gen 1, I told you Scyther, and, like, as time went on, I was just like, man, I never... Okay. Like, I mentioned that one of mine was Gen 6, but I never actually said it. So, I have two favorite Pokemon. They're tied for first. I don't have a preference, but... For whatever reason, over time, Slowpoke has become my favorite Pokemon.
Slowking, Slowbro, yeah. All those evolutions are amazing.
Yeah, I love Slowpoke. Like since I was like, I don't know, in my late teens or 20s, I just really started vibing with Slowpoke. But then my other favorite, I mentioned is a Gen 6 Pokemon, and this one, it's not related to its battling. Neither one is, but I was when Gen 6 was announced, there was like 3 days before the release of the game, somebody had gotten a hold of it and like leaked a bunch of Pokemon like from the Pokedex. And there was one, it's called Hawlucha. Are you familiar with Hawlucha?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's a
bird.
Yeah, it's like a wrestling bird, like a Mexican wrestling bird.
Yeah.
And I saw like the leaked picture from its Pokedex entry, and instantly I'm like, holy shit, that is one of the coolest looking, like I think it's like a combination of like its color scheme, its look, its vibe, like and Hawlucha and Slowpoke have been my favorite. Like since that moment, Slowpoke and Hawlucha have been my favorite Pokemon forever.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of any kind of fighting Pokemon. I just think that's a special ability set. Mm-hmm. And then when you can put it in with flying, like that's pretty sweet.
The last thing I would say is like Hawlucha, and it was my favorite thing, and they haven't done it again since. I don't know why, but Hawlucha was the first and only Pokemon. It has a signature move called Flying Press, which is a dual type move. Mm-hmm. So the move is both flying and fighting type. So it hits different Pokemon differently. It's not like, oh, it's flying, therefore it hits grass type this way. It's like it can hit different Pokemon different ways because it's two types at the same time, which I love.
Yeah, and I've already said it, but like they have figured out how to keep their stuff fresh and alive creatively. The dual sets and you've evolved and now you're a completely different type of Pokemon. Like all that stuff is so good. Pokemon is nostalgic.
Very much.
I'll leave everybody with that. So thank you for tuning in. This episode has been a blast because we both love Pokemon so much. We were nostalgically baptized in the waters of Pokemon since we could remember. And today we got to talk about the movie. We got to talk about Pokemon Go. We got to talk about our favorite Pokemon, which generations were the best. Ian broke down the generations and what were added in each. I thought that was fascinating. And we overall just, shared stories of good nostalgic Pokemon fun. Please join us for the next episode. I believe this is episode 6. We will keep chugging along. And so please join us for the next episode. And we hope you have a good weekend, good day, good night. And, remember something. Remember the good times.